So today is Daf. We're up to Pei Aleph. We're already we're up to Amar of Amnuna, which is about 8 lines from the top. Pei Aleph Amud Aleph. I just want to say one thing that we ran through the last Gemara very, very quickly, and it's important to read out a massive machlekes Rashi and Tosfos. We're not going to be marich on this machlekes, but we have to mention it. Extremely important that the Gemara asked the kasha about the lav of mechusas man. That how come you're not over mechusas man? The Gemara had two turosim. The second teretz of the Gemara, it's shani lav the mechusas man that Torah nitkoy laaseh. So Rashi says that Torah nitkoy laaseh means that it's a regular nittiklase, a regular nittiklase, like you have a regular hashavas aveda, such a kind of a thing, or hashavas kzela, whatever it is. Whenever you have a nittiklase, where the pshat is that there's a lav, and then there's an asay that you can fix up the asay, the lav. Tosfos is very, very bothered by that question because it's not like you did one thing and then you do another nittik, let's say. Over here, the pshat is, it's the same thing. The Torah says, don't do this, but do that, right? And Tosfos Lupsoif has a different mahalach where Tosfos learns the sugya that it's a nittik lasei, meaning that the Torah said it's not a lav, it's an essay. That's the two mahalchim in the Lashon of the Gemara. If nitka la'essay means that the pshat is that a person has a way to fix it off by an assay, or the word is that the Torah changed this one into be a nitik la'asay, into an assay. That's the two malchim in this sugya. Yeah, that's the shmuz of that Gemara. Okay, let's go weiter. That's the long Tosfos, a whole bunch of back and forth, the ganze arichas and Rashi and Tosfos, ganze arichas. Okay, so the Gemara weiter again. Amar Rav Hamnuna. Amar Rav Hamnuna, Oimo Reb Shimon. Yeah, and this Rav Hamnuna is pashtus, going to be very similar to Rabbi Yishai that we had in the block before. Amar Rav Hamnuna, Oimo Reb Shimon. Ein oisei ves benoi, noyeg bekaba babachim. You're not going to have oisei ves benoi b'chlal noyeg bekachim. Why? My time, Akivin Amar Reb Shimon shchita she'en ruya leishma shchita. Since Reb Shimon says shchita she'en ruya leishma shchita, like we're going to see, Be'ez Hashem in the Mishnah on Amud Beis, and the Mishnah on Amud Beis, the whole definition of shchita she'en ruya leishma shchita is that we learn out from utvoyach that the pshat is that when is it called a tvicha, when is it called a shchita, when it's v'hachin, when it's ready roy la'achila, and if it's not roy la'achila, even if it's mitzad akar, it's not going to be a tvoyach tavach. So meveila kachim nami shchita she'en ruya. So every kachim is not a shchita she'en ruya. Why? Because the pshat is like the Gemara said in yesterday's part. The pshat is that since the shchita itself is not matir, because I have to wait for a zrika. So therefore, there's not going to be any yosef es benoi totally in. There's not going to be the whole parsha of Oisves Benoi is not shaykh by kachim. That is how Rashi learns. That's how Rashi learns the sugya, and that's how Rashi learned the sugya before. Tosfos over there before is ma'irich to say and that not like that. And Tosfos argues because we had a sugya in the beginning of the parak that said that from the Vav Moisval in Rishon that Avada Shchita Avada, you do have it. Kachim does buy b'shchita she'en ruya, b'shchita ruya, right? Navas, so right. We have a pasuk that's above Moisval in Yerushin that there's oisves b'noy is noig by kachim. So how is it possible that it shouldn't be noig by kachim at all? So Tosfos, right? And Tosfos says, it's not ruya, it's not a shchita ruya. The teretz is zok Tosfos. Okay, let me just clarify. We're going to have two shmuzin why kachim should not be shchita she'en ruya. You shchita she'en ruya either because every oisav es benoi. The second one is what is the second one is oisav es benoi is mechusas man. And then we had the word of that kachim should not be a shchita ruya because the pshat is because the shchita doesn't matter it. I have to wait for zrika. So on the one that I have to wait for the zrika, that the Gemara is going to discuss. That we'll see. But what's with mechusas man? What's with that? So Rashi learns that stays, and that even once the Gemara is on the thing of Zrika, that since I have to wait for Zrika, so it doesn't bleibe Shchita Ruya, but still the concept that it should bleibe Shchita Shen Ruya, that it should bleibe, it's Seif Kol Seif, it's a Shchita Shen Ruya because it's Mechus Zman, because there's Isa Ves Benai. If Isa Ves Benai is Noig, then it'll be Mechus Zman. So what's the Eitzah? So Rashi says Takenechanami out them is Takenat Noig by Reb Shimon can always buy B'Shchit Shen Roya. Tosfos says no, it's like Exeris HaKosov for the fact that the Torah said that there's a Vav Moisel in Yerishin that Oisv Es B'nai is Noig by Kachim. From there we learn that it's going to be considered a Shchita, even though in Kol Torah Kula a Shchita Shen Roya is Lo Shma Shchita. Ke'en we have by Shchita B'chutz, Shchita Schutz, even though it would bleibe Shchita She'en Ruya. Rashi says it's Exeris HaKosov that we're going to call it a Shchita L'gabe Esa. So the same thing would be the pasuk of Av Moisel in Yerishin of Oisv Es Benoi by Kachim Loit Tosfos. Rashi says that there's no such a thing. That's the two. That's Machlokes Rashi and Tosfos. Zok the Gemara Masur Rav Oisv Es Benoi. Yeah. Now it's important to understand that this brisa, Bash is a brisa. This brisa is not discussing. It's not the sugi of Oisv Es Benoi. It's the sugi of it's the sugi of Shchutei Chutz. And therefore we don't really discuss much of the Oisv Es Benoi. We're not going to be talking about the malchus of the Oisv Es Benoi over here because it's really a shmuz of Shchutei Chutz. Oisv Es Benoi kachim achotz. Reb Shimon Aimer sheni beloy sasei. That the second one, meaning the second, let's say he did Oiseh and then Benoi. So Benoi is going to be below Sasei. Reb Shimon Naim Kol Harei Lavi Lachazman Harei below Sasei. Vein by Kars. So Reb Shimon, first of all, is being mechadish over here. That what that the Sheni is going to be there's like a middle ground over here. You have a Oiseh Es Benoi that you're not going to get regular malchus, but it's going to be belav. Yeah? We're going to get to what that is much later. But first, we're going to have to try to explain this brisa. This brisa doesn't seem to make any sense. Okay, we'll get to it. Yeah? That what? That if it doesn't have chorus, it's einer belois. I say there's no such middle ground. This machlokes Reb Shimon and the Chacham is about this middle ground. That there's such a thing as a lav without malchus. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's get back. Right? It's machlokes l'gabi shchutei chutz, right? Yeah. Meaning that what? That normally to be chayiv in shchutei chutz, you need something to be royal. You need a royal lavi pesach moed, and if it's not royal pesach moed, you're not going to be chayiv kar. You're not going to be chayiv karis of shchutei chutz. So Reb Shimon, but no, it's going to be a issa, but not karis. Some things royal lavi lachazman arei will say vein by karis. That's Reb Shimon's halacha. No kosher by karis and by say there's no such thing as a middle ground. L'gabi shchutei chutz. Yeah, good. Club. The kasha lon, and we had a kasha kachim bachutz sheini beloy sasei. Now what are we saying? That we're saying that the kachim bachutz that we did both of them bachutz sheini is beloy sasei. That's what Reb Shimon says that the second one is beloy sasei. Kama mikto katlol sheini mekaba b'fneimu. Right? That what? That since the first one was a shchutei chutz, and Reb Shimon holds that shchita sheneruya lo yishma shchita. So it's a regular mikta kotl. It's not a shchita. And if it's not a shchita, so mele what sheni should be miskabel b'fnim because it's shchita sheneruya lo yishma shchita. This is Reb Shimon 101. Nothing to do with the machlokes Rashi and Tosfos. This is a regular shchutei chutz. Shchutei chutz is loit Rashi, loit Reb Shimon is for sure a regular shchita sheneruya. This is right. This is basics. Right? We're not talking about if this is not nichlal in the question of Rashi and Tosfos if there's a bezundra gzeres hakosov legabi kachim and Oisv Es Benoi because that's befnim. Here's a shchutei chutz. This is definitely clearly a regular shchita sheneruya. Yeah. Karis nami lechayev. Let's be chayev regular karis. Why? Because in other words, what this second, the first one was a shchita shenaruya, and the shchita shenaruya. So therefore, you don't have a oisav esbenai because there wasn't a shchita on the mother. So once we get to the son, the son should be miskabel with him, and it should be a regular shchita. It should be a regular shchita roya. It should be again. It will have the same problem. You might have the same problem that you're not going to be chayiv. You might have the same problem that we're not going to be chayiv oisves benoi, maybe, right? But forget about oisves benoi. But out shchutei chutz. I took the one mother and I did her b'chutz. And like Reb Shimon, it's a shchita shenaruya loish mashchita. So therefore, the son is not. It's not mechusas man. Nothing's missing. It's a regular shchutei chutz. It's not really. There's no problem. Why? Why are we saying that the son is going to be? It's going to be asavein by cars. Yep. This whole brisa we have to be mamish. We have to add a whole ganze Sachen in this whole brisa. If you had kachim at both two kachim and they're both b'chutz, so then it depends. Loiter Rabbanan have no problem with shchitas of shchitas and ruya. So two kachim b'chutz. The rishon einish kares. It's a regular shchutei chutz, and sheni pasal upater. And the second one is pasal upater. Why is the second one pasal upater? Because since they don't believe in Rabbanan don't hold of shchitas and ruya l'shma shchita. So even though, right? So really, it should be. It should have been a problem. Why is it pater? Because it's not miskabel b'fnim. So therefore, you pater. Now, what's the story with Oisev Es Benoi? So the Gemara, the girsa that we have lefaneinu is Pater milav de shchutei chutz, right? Rashi wasn't gers the milav de shchutei chutz, and Rashi says this is what the Shash and all the Achronim say because Rashi says, but Pater means legabe shchutei chutz. In other words, Rashi read Zois what the Gemara and our girsa is gers mefurish. No, machlokes, it just doesn't say it first in the Gemara like Rashi, that the pshat is that obviously we're talking about shchutei chutz, because what's going to be oisav es benoi? Why should you not have oisav es benoi like the Rabbanon? Like the Rabbanon, there's no din of shchita shenaruya l'shma shchita. So so even though the first one you were over shchutei chutz, the second one is oisav es benoi, you're going to be chayiv. The Reb Shimon, what's going to be like Reb Shimon? Shneim oinchim kares. Both of them you can have kares. Why? Because the first one you had the shchita shenaruya. I'm sorry. Yeah. Right? That's clear, right? Reb Shimon, Shnei Amoinchim Karas. Both of them you're going to get karas. Why? Because there's no issa of oisav es benoi on the second one, because the first one was a shchita shenaruya. So memela, the second one I'm going to get karas. I'm going to get it's miskabel b'fnim. The second one it's not a mechusas man, because the first one was a shchita shenaruya. Echa b'chutz vecha b'fnim. If let's say I had two kachim, one of them I did b'chutz, one of them b'fnim. So the first one was b'chutz. I'm going to be chayiv on it. What? I'm going to be mechayiv on it. Karas. And the second one, what's going to be with the second one? That's going to be totally. If we did echad b'chutz and echad b'fnim, so the Rabbanan rishon einish kares. The first one gets regular kares because it's a regular shchutei chutz, and sheni is pasol upater. The second one is pasol upater. Why is it pasol upater? Because like the chachamim, the second one is it's oisav es benoi. It blibes. There's no such thing shchita and rulish mashchita. So it's mechusas man. So it's pasol upater. Right? Why are you? And what's going to be with the lav of you're going to be parted from shchutei chutz, but obviously you're going to be chayiv on oisav es benoi l'terabbanan, right? L'Rab Shimon Sheini Kasha L'Rab Shimon. The first one I did bachot. I'm going to get karis because I did shchut chutz. But since it was a shchita sheneruya, so the first one is not going to trigger an oisav es benoi. So the second one will be kasha. I did it bifnim, kachim bifnim. It's not oisav es benoi. Finish. Why not? It's kasha. Let's say he did one bifnim, one b'chutz. Did one bifnim and one b'chutz. So that Rabbanan Rishon kasher upater, right? Well, I did nothing wrong. Vadit's kasher upater, right? And Rashi read Zois. It was just Agavocha that was saying that. Obviously, I did nothing wrong with the first one. Sheni pasol upater. Why the second one's pasol upater? Because it's not miskabel b'fnim. L'Rab Shimon. L'Rab Shimon Sheni Beloisasei. Right? So L'Rab Shimon, the Sheni is going to be Beloisasei. Why is the Sheni Beloisasei? So even though, right? So we didn't get yet to the Gemara's kasha yet of Mechus's man, of Rav Nuna, of his kasha that L'chura that Kachim L'Rab Shimon. It's always going to blibe. It's going to blibe shchutei chutz. It's going to blibe oshchita sheneruya. But let's first get the pshat. That what the L'Rab Shimon Sheni is below saseh. Why? Because since he shechted the first one, he shechted one kidabaya. Now he came to the second one. The second one's not miskabel v'fnim, so you're not chayiv like Reb Shimon. Like the Chachamim. Like Reb Shimon argues, and he says that even though it's not miskabel v'fnim hayoyim, but since it's roy lo v'lachas man, I'm going to be v'loy saseh. That's the din of Reb Shimon, the chiddush of Reb Shimon in this brisa that we're dealing with right now. If you're going to say taka like Rav Nuna's chiddush that ain't which is similar to Rav Oishia that ain't oisves b'noy b'kachim. Sheni amai beloisasei. Typically, that Sheni is not beloisasei. Why? Because we have another problem. Forget about the problem of that it's not miskabel b'fnim. Stamazay, it's kachim, and if it's kachim, since it has to wait until there's rika for it to be mutter. So memela, but there's no oisves b'nai by kachim. I'm sorry. Sheni, am I below say v'suloi kares nami l'chayiv? Pukvaket. Like Reb Shimon, since the first one was a shchita she'ena roya. In other words, because there's no such thing as a shchita by kachim, because shchita is not matter. I always need a zrika. So then so I could never trigger oisves b'nai. So the second one should be a regular gishmaka. Regular, I should get kares. Right? The first one was a shchita b'fnim of kachim, but it's not. We don't call it a shchita because why? Because it's shchita's kachim which needs a zrika. So memela it doesn't trigger oisves b'nai. So the b'nai that I do b'chutz is a regular is a regular kares b'chutz. Amai b'loi says v'suloi kares nami l'chayv ela. Marav hachi kama Rav Nuna. A whole different Rav Nuna. Rav Nuna says something else in Ganzen. Ein malchus oisves b'nai nei b'kachim b'chlal. Ein malchus oisves b'noi noi b'kachim. Why? Given the kamad loy zorik dam loy mishteri basa miidna de kashachit havoy hasra sofik v'hasra sofik loy shmei hasra. Now over here there's a massive machlokes. I mean it's really two lashonos in Rashi. How to pasha what the gears of this. So Rashi first brings a Gemara with our gears of Asra Safik, and then Rashi is very unhappy with it, and Rashi says that it was a pirish meshubashu mi'adam charafu mufopel, and then Rashi says a second shot, but the way the Levi learns that Rashi continues learning the Gemara like the pirish meshubashu mufopel, like the adam charafu mufopel at the end of the sugya as well. Yeah, afal pikein. What's the cheshbon? They're like this. That the pshat is that Rav Nuna says that every time you're going to have oisves b'noi by kachim, you're not going to get malchus. Why? Because the first one kol kamad lezorik dam lemishteri basar miidna because zorik havi asra sofik lishmei asra. That the pshat is that it's only going to be triggered retroactively, and with my shechita, the second one, right? When I shechted the benoi, I shechted the second one. The shechita itself is not roya until I do zrika, and once I do zrika, what's the problem? It becomes retroactively. It was roya the shechita. So when someone was masi, you shouldn't shecht. You shouldn't shecht. You shouldn't shecht the what's called the second kachim, the benoi. Yeah, we're saying the benoi. Obviously, it could be the reverse order also, but we're calling the second one the benoi. So then what? It's asra suffik, and asra suffik lo yishmei asra. Now, there's a very big problem in the sugya, which is the kasha Rashi says. That Rashi asks that forget about hasra suffik. I have a different reason why it should be potter. Since the first one was since it's oisaves benoi, so the second one, yeah. So the second one is b'chosas man. If it's mechusas man, typically out mechusas man, it's not oisaves benoi. It's possible. Out kachim, it's possible. Mechusas man and loy Reb Shimon shchita generally lishma shchita. So l'chura what? So the question is, so why does the Gemara have to mix in the svara of oisaves of asra suffik? Typically below asra suffik. Yeah. So what you have to remember from the sugya, without going through the cheshbon, it says that Rashi says, let's learn the whole sugya without asra suffik, and he cuts out all those lines from the gears of the Gemara. Right, and it comes out that. So that's how Rashi learns the sugya, that it's a regular shchita she'enoi ru'uya. Regular shchita. I'm sorry, it's a regular. You're not going to get malchus because there's shchita she'enoi ru'uya. Because why? Because it's mechusas man. That's how Rashi learns. Now this machlokes is very totally in the machlokes Rashi and Tosfos. If there's a concept of like Reb Shimon, if there's a new separate gzeres hakasuv that you'll, even though it's mechusas man, the second. The benoi, if the second one would bleib a shchita shein ruya, because why? Because of mechusas man, because of the issa oisves benoi. Like Tosfos, that's part of the vav moisval in Yerushin. And there are those that say in Rashi that you don't say this teretz. Why you don't say this teretz? Because you don't say this teretz because it could be that the Vav Moisval in Yerushin is that the first one was Kachim, not the second one was Kachim. The second one was never Kachim. The second one can't be Kachim. But the first one was Kachim. I would think that you won't have say Oisves Benai. That's why I need Vav Moisval in Yerushin. But Taken Economy, there's no Yalfusa for a case where the second one is Kachim. That's a very Geshmaka Zach. Now, I just want to say one more knage. I want to say over Merdiger Clare for Craig Clares. Craig Clares a shayla like this. What will be in such a case? Yeah? If you hold, should we say it over here? Yeah. If you hold, so first of all, there's a Chsam Sofer. Chsam Sofer says that there's another murdiga besides the cheshbon that Rashi has. There's another geshmaka uftu with if you take out Asra Sofik over here, because the Maisa, because Rava holds that Rava holds that Asra Sofik Shmo Asra. So Memela, so if Rava holds Asra Sofik Shmo Asra, and over here he's saying Asra Sofik Lo Shmo Asra, is a problem with Stira and Rava. That's another problem. Okay, now what will be? Yeah, Rebbe declares a chakira like this. What will happen if somebody shechts kachim, and somebody shechts kachim? So you have a chiv to be zayrik, right? So he shechted kachim and he was zayrik. That was the av. Now came the bena. I shechted it and I was not zayrik. Now, if I'm going to be zayrik the second one, I'll be over an av. Okay, that's not suffix. I'm not going to get Malchus, but I'm going to be over a lot, right? Right? That's what this gear says. That's how Tosfos learns for sure. That Avad I'm going to be over Issa. Rashi maybe holds I'm not going to be over Issa, but Tosfos holds I'm going to be over Issa. And even light like Rashi, I guess like the Chacham, you're going to be Mechoyev, I think. But so Klet Reb Kreiga, I think so, right? For Klet Reb Kreiga, what will be in such a case? What does somebody do? He blives Tzarech in Gadol. Somebody shechted the Benoi. Yeah? He shechted the Oisei, and then he shechted the Benoi. He's in the Beis HaMikdash. Now he has a Chi of Zrika. But if he's going to be Zarek, then it's going to be over a lav of what? Of Oisei Benoi. Or should he not be Zorik? This way he will blind by a Shchita Sheina Ruya, and then he won't be Oiva Yisves B'nai. So what are you supposed to do? Maybe he holds, he class, maybe he'll blind Esedech Eloisa say, whatever, this the Yesh Mal Falpol over here in that Shiloh. Okay, so the more right, was Ravel Tamei, the my Rave, he Chulin Ubna Shlab, if let's say the first behema is a chulin, and the second one's a shlamim. Shachat chulin v'yachagach shachat shlamim. Potter. So why is he potter? So again, the two pshatim and Rashi. Either he's potter because the second one is a shlamim, so it's a suffix, or because the second one is since it's a shlamim, so and it's oisves benoi, and oisves benoi triggers makes the second one to be mechus zman, and mechus zman is potter because why? Like Reb Shimon out what? Out shchita shen ruya lishma shchita. Yeah. Shlamim v'achach chulin. But if let's say he did fakert, he did first the shlamim and then he did a chulin chayiv. Why? Why? Because the second was chulin. So it's not asur suffix. I don't need a zrika. The second shchita is going to be a shchita just on its own, right? It's very simple, right? V'amar he chulin ubenach oilam. What'll be? If the mashal, if the first one is chulin and the second one is oilam, yeah, one is chulin and the child's an oilam. Lay mi boy shachat chulin v'achkach shachat oilam the potter. We just got finished saying that when the second one is a carbon, the second family member of this animal, of this animal family, is a carbon. I'm going to be part of either al tasar or because as man. Like me, boy, if the second one is a carbon that you potter. So if let's say over here, when it's talking about oila, afilu shachat oila ve'achakach shachat chulin. So l'chura, what? The second one was a regular chulin. It's a regular oisves b'nai. Zakrava potter. Why? Because shchita kamaisa lav shchita bas achilahi. This is all going in Reb Shimon. The Reb Shimon holds tavach v'ach, and then it has to be a bas achila. And this is not a bas achila. Why is it not a bas achila? Because the first one was an oila, and an oila is not roi for achila. For Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbi Yochanan, achilas mizbeach shma achila. My time with the makrov v'mi yachil yachil mibsar zavach shlomav. B'shtei achilas hakazav medaber echad achilas odav v'echad achilas mizbeach. So memela, since we have a drasha of echad achilas odav v'echad achilas mizbeach legabe achila legabe hakrov as hakarbon like ha'oila. So memela, it would blibe a shchita ru'oya. Now, it's important to point out that the drasha of a miyachi yachel happens to be Rava also. Rava is masking to that drasha. He's not arguing in the drasha of a yachel. The shaila is what exactly is the machlokes Rava and Rabbi Yankiv over here. Everyone's masking to this halacha that avada by pigel and yachel is a lashon of achila and a lashon of aktora. And the shaila is what does Reb Shimon hold if legabe shchita she'en ruya if it's going to blibe an achila? Yeah, that's the shaila. What exactly? What's the shaila in this machlokes if achilas mizbeach shma achila? Yeah. So I mean, it's probably just a shaila how far the drasha is. When we say b'shtei achilas kosum medaber be'achilas mizbeach, is the pshat that the Torah is saying that they're both called achilos? Or no? The Torah is not calling it, they're not called achilos. It happens to be that over there the Torah is discussing an achilos adam as well, so we called it the achilos mizbeach achila. But not because achilos mizbeach is really called an achila, that's what Rav Stein is. But Mashenkin, Rabbi Yankiv Rabbi Yochanan holds that no, from the Arden state, that it's shma achila to the point that oblai b'shchita ruya. Yeah, oblai b'shchita, shchita ruya as well, that oblai ruya lachila. Okay, that's the Mishnah. That's the Gemara. Let's move on to the Mishnah. The following Mishnah is going to discuss 5 cases, and very interesting and odd that the Gemara is going to take out, mamish, white out 2 of them. Ain't a Mishnah, 2 of them. So we're going to be down to only 3. Hashoichet v'nimtza treifam. Hashoichet la'avoid zahare. V'ashoichet pares chatos v'shora niskol v'egla rufa. So all these 5 things kipshutai are not royal achila, but they're not. There's no chesaron in the achila mitzat atzma. In other words, that the shchita was okay. We did a good shchita, but we have a zaytik problem. What was the problem? Either there's a treifa, or he was machashav lavid zara. Or paras chatas. Paras chatas is that this was an animal that was the para aduma, and we're going to see that it's going like the mandama that holds that it's already asa bahana earlier. It's already not already from when it was so fresh. And shara niskol we know is asa bahana. And egla arufa. There's a very interesting Reb Kveige. Reb Kveige declares, not over here, but Reb Kveige declares why don't you say by every asaba hana? What'll be by asaba hana if should shchita work because it doesn't have simana? B'chura it's ksusi mechta shura. As I declare Reb Kveige, and because Avram is matmiyah Reb Kveige that the Magen Avram is matmiyah Reb Kveige that it's b'chura first Mishnah not like that. Because our Mishnah says it's only a problem with Reb Shimon, but later Chacham you're going to be mechayiv. Why are you mechayiv? Why are you mechayiv? The teretz is that what that there is no problem with Ksusi Mechta Shirei. Yeah, so a starke kasha. But anyway, sagt the Gemara weiter. V'chachamim mechayvim. So it's a machlokes if you have a zayt gezach. If this is a shchita of what? If this is a shchita of if it's a shchita that's going to trigger oisav esbenoi. Hashoichet v'nisnablo biyodoi. What does nisnablo biyodoi means? That it happened by mistake. Or v'handoiche v'amaker potter mishum oisei ve'esbenoi. So over here is very interesting that over here mitamol it says potter mishum oisei ve'esbenoi. Why did it say potter mishum? We're talking about oisei ve'esbenoi all that's what we've been talking about all week. What's this mishum oisei ve'esbenoi? So Kreiger brings down from I don't remember which achron that says that anoiche v'amaker somebody is killing an animal b'moyadayim for without shchita, he's going to be over other yisurim, but oisvos b'noy is not going to be mechuyev. And he says a list of 3 things. What are you going to be over if you're noiche v'amaker behema? So he says 3 things. First of all, what? Tzar b'alei chayim. Second of all, bal tashchis. And third of all, he says that the chzaron is going to be that if, let's say, this behema was a gilgal of a tzaddik, or a gilgal of somebody that needed a tikkun, and if you're gonna go shecht it, and you're gonna go minochem ake, it's not going to get its tikkun. And Rebbe Kreiger brings down only the first 2 reasons. I don't know why. But anyway, he only brings down the first 2, that the word is out Baltashkis and out Baltashkis and out Tzar B'Lechai. But what's interesting about this shmuz is, this is very interesting, so you could say that Craig is Pasha being very Litvish and he didn't bring down anything about Gilgulim. That's what you could say. But you could say a different pshat. It's true, the third cheshbon is not a pshat in our Mishnah, because our Mishnah says, Potter mishum oisves benoi, meaning you're chayiv on something else. You're not chayiv on something else if you didn't take care of this guy's gilgulim, right? You shouldn't do it, maybe, but you're not chayiv on something else. So Mela out the pshatov in the Mishnah, it could be pshatov in the Mishnah, it's not negay that third cheshbon. That's what we could say. It's also very, very, very interessant the famous tshuva of the Noda Yehuda, the famous tshuva, I heard somebody tell this too to this Gregor. There's a famous tshuva of the Noda Yehuda legabi hunting. Yeah, Kiyadua, very famous story, very famous. There was a rich guy who owned these big these vast woods. And it was a chashuv to go out hunting. And somebody he asked the Noda Yehuda, is it mutter to what's called it? Is it mutter to go hunting? That was the shayla as a sport. Shayla outside by the chayim, right? That's all. So one of the svaras that Noda Yehuda says is Noda Yehuda that tzar b'lechayim is only when an animal is alive. When an animal is alive, you're being mitzayer it. But to kill it, that is no tzar b'lechayim. This would be a raya, not like that. That the pshat is that when someone's you killed the animal, but you didn't kill it derech shita, you killed it in a more achzoristic way, it would be a problem of tzar b'alechayim. That svara would be an issue. There's another massive kasha in the sugya. This is like a bomb kasha in the sugya, which we did mention earlier on. That the shaila is hashoich lavodah zareh. State now Mishnah that what Reb Shimon holds it's a problem of al shita she'enaroya. But the Chachamim hold it's you're going to be mechayiv. What's the shaila? The shaila is that l'chura once he was over avodah zarah, he's a mummer. If he's a mummer, his shchita is not kshera, so it's hasheichav and it's not b'yadeh. Why are you chayiv? L'chura it shouldn't be yotzev es b'noi because he was in the snabla because it became a nevela. This is the kasha that the Rishonim are very famushit from. Yeah, this is a bomb kasha. If l'chura somebody was over avodah zarah, and if he's over avodah zarah, so if he's over avodah zarah, say he's a mummer, and if he's a mummer, so then it's a nevela. If it's a nevela, what the Mishnah says, a nevela is not going to be you're not going to be chayiv in oisves benoi. Zokt Tosfos. Tosfos earlier said the teretz is that the pshat is it must be that the mummer doesn't mean one time. Mashma mummer for one time from a mol that mishke mummer, right? Somebody slipped one time, that's not called a mummer. A mummer is somebody for 3 times, whatever. Somehow that became his mahalach. He was pyrik me'ol of the oil of this mitzvah. And Mamela, we're talking about somebody who did it tzaytva. He did it. He was trying it out, but he never ended up converting. Yeah, that is Tosfos' teretz. The Ramban says a lugdish teretz. He says that he only becomes a mummer the second afterwards. But the first shchita, even in the first shchita, he wasn't a mummer until after the shchita. So after the shchita, he'll be a mummer. And from now on, it'll be a problem. But this one is no problem. That's the one eitzah. And the third eitzah, there is a third eitzah that Ramban has, another eitzah somehow that it's not going to be it's going to be mitayim midei. He wants to say that shchitas mummer is going to be mitayim midei nevela, and because of that, blai b'shchita. That's a cheshbon. Okay, that's another cheshbon. Okay, so Akti Gemara weiter. Let's move on. Yeah. Sagt die more weiter am Rab Shimon Lakish. Lo yishanu el shachat rishon la'avodah zarah v'sheni l'shulchan. Now, what are we talking about? In the case of our sheikh la'avodah zarah, that was saying that you can be over avodah zarah. So which one's which? Yeah, there's 2 shchitas here. There's shchita 1 and shchita 2, right? And the 2 ones he's triggering it by the first one, and then he's doing the second one. So which one is which? Shachat rishon la'avodah zarah v'sheni l'shulchan. That's where you'll have the problem in our Mishnah of that. That's where the shmuz in our Mishnah that like the chacham you're going to be chayiv. Ava rishon l'shulchan v'sheni la'avodah zarah. But if you're going to have the second one, if the second one is going to be la'avodah zarah, potter the kam le'bid rabim because what kam le'bid rabim. Because since he's going to be mechuyev misa for being sheikh avodah zarah, so males come like ben rabinei, and you're not going to be over. You're not going to get malchus for what? For the oisaves b'noi of the second one. Even though you did a shchita ru'ya, because it was only a chasar min atzad like the chachamim, but still you don't get malchus and mammon the same time, right? Yeah. What? I mean, not moment. Malchus and Misa. That is Rish Lakish. Now, there's a shmooze here in Rashi that might be kedai to go through over here. Rashi says like this. Rashi is very meirich. The first one he did lavei zara. So what's the case that our Mishnah is talking about? That he shachar lavei zara, and the second one he did le shulchanai. So memela in that case, the first one he's going to get misa for the first one, but the second one he was did le shulchanai. He thought he was doing something great. He's going to get malchus for, right? So Rashi's meirich. So what do you do in such a case? He's getting misa for the first shchita, and he's getting malchus for the second one. So Rashi says, make sure to be done for the second one first. Don't be down for the first one first, because you're going to be, yeah. Did I mean on labor asra? The sheni doisves benoy umal kinale. V'had dainina na hasra the shchita kamaisel avei dezara v'katlina le. Inami mishnei b'nei adam. But Rashi says, you know how you do it? Make sure you're going to be down for the second one, and then you're going to be down for the first one. Why? What's Rashi bothered by? Who cares about the din? So the Achronim learned Pshat in Rashi that the problem is that Rashi's Pasha worried about Idi Adin. That the word is that if I'm going to be down the first one first, yeah? If I'm going to be done the first one first, and what, he's going to be mechuyev misa. So then when it comes to the second one, so I can't go now and go be oil din for the second one. Because that's it. I have to kill him already. I can't be busy with the malchus of the second one. I got to kill him off. And memela it's ine adin, and that's the pshat in Rashi. I just want to say one knech, that Rashi is a much bigger chiddush. Yeah, I don't know what to do with this machshava here, but it's a very important thing. Rashi's chiddush is not that we make sure that the edus for the malchus comes second. Yeah, that's always like that. It's always like that we'll make sure that the edus for the malchus comes, that the edus for the misa comes second. Rashi's bothered by a new problem here. Yeah, Rashi says ahasra d'sheni. What does Rashi want? Rashi wants something else. Rashi's bothered by a new problem over here. The problem is that you can't give malchus for the second one without the first one's ma'edus also. What's going to happen? Right? Oysev as benoi is only a shchita on the second one plus the first one. Right? So what's going to happen? I have to be makabel the edus. I have to be makabel the edus for the first one and the second one. So how am I going to go and be done the malchus without how am I going to be makabel the malchus? How am I going to be makabel the edus for the second one without being makabel the edus for the first one? I'm going to be makabel the edus for the first one, and then I have to be done b'misa. So Rashi, the eitzah is the dainile bereisha hasra, meaning I'm not going to be makabel the edus on both of them, and you can be makabel the edus right away. But we could be done the hasra on the second before we're done the hasra on the first one. Yeah, very important. Okay, so I right. Yeah, I didn't say, but that's a garnish. It's an interesting lashon. This is garnish grace chiddush. Rabbi Yechanan, you could do better. Even if the first one was the shechani and the second one is avodah zarah, you're going to be chayiv. Why? If you were maser b'shomai on the second one and you forgot to be maser al avodah zarah, so you're not going to be chayiv on avodah zarah. You're not going to be chayiv misa. Once you're not chayiv misa, Rabbi Yechanan holds that why you'll still be chayiv malchus. And this Rav Shimon Lakashama, no, give it the chiyasu bei potter, kilayasu bei nami potter. So yeah, and the machlokes is chayvei misais shoygigin. That's mamish the machlokes. V'azul tamayu the chiyasu Rav Dimi Amar chayvei misais shoygigin, v'chayvei malkis shababoygigin v'davarachem. Chayvei misais shoygigin v'davarachem, and chayvei malkis shoygigin v'davarachem. Yeah. Now over here, what's the davar acher in the second second machlekes? Over here, we're talking about mammon. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayiv, Rish Lakish Amar Potter. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayiv. The halayasu bei. So there's no common Rabbi Rish Lakish Amar Potter. Kivan dechi asu bei Potter. Kilo yasu bei nami Potter. Yeah. Kivan dechi asu bei Potter. Kilo yasu bei nami Potter. That's Rabbi Yochanan's halacha. That what that chayv mishoygin you potter. Now kipshutoi daf ben zogin kipshutoi just in lom this daf ben zogin that the machlokes Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish is in Pashon how common Rabbinay works. Like Rabbi Yochanan the pshat is it's a komle b'derabimine. In other words, that the Rabbah somehow decks over and is mekayim the what's called that he had to do, right? Mashenkin Rish Lakish holds that no, that even though there's a the word is it's much more than that. That since that in the case where there's a Rabbah and a Chassid, the smaller einish is never chal. So mamela, even if I'm not going to lemaisa be became the Rabbah minay, I will still be potter on the what's called it on the smaller one. It's very important for the next tzrichasa in Rashi's arichas. Utzricha diashmina b'ha. So what do we have? We have two machlokes of Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, one in our Mishnah, and one by Chayv Misa Shegi v'Davar Acher. Chayv Misa Shegi v'Davar Acher is Chayv Misa and Mammon, and over here it's Malkus and Mammon. Malkus and Misa. So it's Misa and Malkus in our Gemara, and Misa and Mammon in that Gemara. So why did they have to argue twice? I would think that only over there Reb Shimon Lakish said it. I would think that where did Reb Shimon Lakish say it? He only said it over here by us. Mashenke by Mamonis over there, Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish is not moide. Yeah. So what's the word? What's the word? Why should I think that there's such a difference? Let's just finish the word. So bottom line is like this: that the Gemara would say that there's a havamina of a middle darga. Right now, we know that this machlokes Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish is very clear. One side holds that shoygigin never patters. The other one shoygigin always patters, regardless if we're talking about Malkus or Mammon. But there would have been a havamina that there's a middle ground. What's the middle ground? That when it's Malkus and Mammon, then it patters sai if it's b'shoygin, sai if it's b'mezid. Mashing, when it comes to Mammon, it doesn't patter either way. So Rashi's ma'arich to explain what that havamina would have been. And basically, I think this is the way I'm reading Rashi is like this: that Malkus and Misa, the word of Malkus and Misa is that they're both begufay. Mashing and Mammon is not begufay. So Mamela, we just said there's two ways how to understand the Kamei B'Rameh. Either the pshat is it's not chal, or the word is the bigger one decks into the smaller one. Zokt, and the Gemara says this tzrichas because there would have been it's hard to say, it's hard to argue that it depends which one we're talking about. When it comes to Malkus and Mammon, they're both begufay, so we don't put two misas begufay. But if one's begufay, one's why not? Why shouldn't you put it? But there's still right? There would be such a svar. But even if we'll say that, right? But we still recognize that the Rabba Mineh would deck Iber if you're taka doing it. Right? But it'll come out that the lumdis of Kamei Rabba Mineh of Malkus and Mammon, Mamash two dinim. By Malkus, the word is that you're not Rami on his goof two things. And Malkus and Misa, you can't be Rami two things. Mashek, when it comes to Mammon, the word is it's not that you're not Rami two things. You are Rami two things. Because it's two different gufos. The problem, but the Misa decks the Mammon. Yeah, and don't ask me I Vaisa is two dinim because forget it's a havamina. We don't do this. We taka don't say it. Because I've had the two dinim are not good. Yeah, right. So more right. Sagt die Gemara weiter. Tzricha. Sagt die Gemara, Paras Chatas Shchita Shein Aruya. Stop. Back to our Mishnah. We said that Paras Chatas, meaning that the Para Aduma is a Shchita Shein Aruya, that it's not Roy Lachila. V'hatanya Reb Shimon Naima Para Mitama Thomas Eichlin. It's Mitama Thomas Eichlin. The Para Aduma has it has it in Eichel and it's Mitama Thomas Eichlin. Hoyel v'hoysel la Shasa Koisha. What do you mean I had a Shasa Koisha? Why did I have a Shasa Koisha? So if I say it was a Shchita Roya, at some point it was a Shasa Koisha. So to Gemara, why? If for whatever reason you found a nicer Para Aduma, even a prettier one, yeah, the Chaver in Texas showed up with even a nicer Para Aduma, even after it was already geschachten on the pyre. No problem, you could change it, you could be paid and replace it. So if it's niftis, feel I got marachta, so vice is not osla achilo. So Mamela, obviously, so why was there shchita shein aruya? Rav Shama bar Abba, Rav Yochanan, paras chatos eina mishnah. Take it out. Okay, so that one we took out. Now it's like tomorrow another kasha. The egla rufa lav the shchita ruya. Egla rufa is not a shchita ruya. Ve'otnan neimtza hoyrei kacheloi teya reifa egla. Yeah, we're on their way, the whole procession, doing the whole egla rufa because they couldn't find the murderer, and all of a sudden the guy was found. So the whole thing is, so what do? Teitzei v'tera be'eder. Nothing. Back to normal. This animal is all good. It's all motabachila. So it's not osbachila back by the shchita, right? So vice is not osbachila back to the shchita. So why is there shchita shenuria? Amrab Shemel Lakish Mishra Bianai Egla Rufa Eine Mishnah. So far, but remember these names. So far the Gemara brought down that it's Rishimim Ben Lakish Mishum Rab Yanai Egla Rufa Eine Mishnah. Frack the Gemara, we're going to ask on the Reb Yanai part, we're going to ask it on the Reb Shimon Lakish part. I remember that there's some sort of a time that starts. Yeah, Rabbi Yanai says it doesn't start from the Lekicha, but there's a time when the Issa Hana starts by we're almost finished by Egla Rufa. I remember that there's a time. I don't remember exactly when it is. V'naz ben Chavraya Loima, and my friends said me svara that it's Yiridasal and Achal Eisa Noisarta. That when does it become Aser? It starts becoming Aser b'shas the Yiridal and Achal Eisa. So by the time we get to the right, so Mamela what? So Mamela, why are we saying? Frek the Gemara. Why are we saying that it's Ein Mishnah of Emisa Lishni Kan Kaid Mirida Kan Lachi Yerida? The case where the Gemara said Nimtza Irigat Shalai Tiarif Egla Teitzei V'Terel Be'eder is talking about Kaidim Yeridasal and Achaleina Eson, and our Mishnah is talking about Lachi Yeridasal. Why do we have to say Ein Mishnah? Because Be'eder Avami Anamish Be'eder Rav Shimon Lakish Masnina Lo Egla Rufa Ein Mishnah. Then another is like this. You're asking a kasha, Rabbi Yanai holds Gvul Samti Lo. So Rabbi Yanai, so how can you say Rabbi Yanai b'shem Rav Shimon Lakish that it's Ein Mishnah? No, Rabbi Yanai holds Gvul Samti Lo that it is Nesa Bachila earlier. So Gemara, okay, Chanami. We're going to take out the Rabbi Yanai part. We'll just leave it as Rav Shimon Lakish himself, not Rabbi Yanai b'shem Rav Shimon Lakish. Frek the Gemara kasha, Rav Ashi, Ki Avina Bera Papi kasha Lo Mi Rav Shimon Lakish Haki. It can't be Rav Shimon Lakish either. Itma Tzipoyim Mitzoyra. Right? You have the two birds of a mitzayra. One of them you shecht, and one of them you send away. And that's for sure that you want to one that you send away eventually becomes mutar b'achila because avadi once it's out there, someone could end up using it. But the question is, b'shas that you have it isn't nesa. Rabbi Yochanan says that when you're shechting one, the other one is also nishchet. Is also necessary. All the way back from when they bought it. That Reb Shimon Lakish, Taka learns it up from Egla Rufa. Egla Rufa is not from the Kicha, it's from the Nachal, Yiridiyas Nachal Eis. And Rashi says, because there is a different gvul that you could put. So, but bottom line is, Reb Shimon Lakish holds that the Egla Rufa is Nasar. V'haraya, that's Gardu Makar for Tzibari Mitzayra. So if it is Nasar earlier, so why is it Ein Mishnah? Elam Reb Chia Bar Abba, Reb Yochanan, Egla Rufa Ein Mishnah. So not Reb Yanai, not Reb Shimon Lakish. We started off Reb Yanai, Reb Shimon Lakish, and we took away Reb Yanai, then we took away Reb Shimon Lakish, and we said it's Reb Yochanan. Reb Yochanan said Ein Mishnah. I guess we'll leave it here because it is late.